Hiya, this is Vegemite. Vegemite is a Northern Blue Tongue Skink, and today I'm going to tell you all about them, why I would never trust them alone with a plate of snails, and why this skink has one of the most famous defence displays in the reptile world. So I think it's fair to say that I love Australia. I have a lot of Australian animals, I love a lot of Australian TV, but I just couldn't give another pet another name from Prisoner Cell Block H or Neighbours. I was tempted to call them Glitch because Vegemite had lost their tail when they were a baby and they regenerated it, and I thought, Glitch? But in the end, I thought I'm going to pay respect to one of my favourite countries in the world, and I'm going to go for Vegemite. So, an Australian icon for an Australian legend of the Northern Blue Tongue Skink. Show everyone your tiny, stumpy little tail, Vegemite. That's regenerated nicely. I probably should have called you the Doctor. And I think, similar to in the UK, where people either love or hate Marmite, people either love or hate Vegemite. But I don't think you could hate a Blue Tongue Skink. Even if you're not into reptiles. Just look at that face. So it's no secret that the majority of my reptile room happens to be filled with snakes. But I do have a soft spot for the Blue Tongue Skink. I've also got a soft spot for bearded dragons. Hell, I have a soft spot for most reptiles. I love them. The Blue Tongue Skink is especially chill, relaxed, calm. And I get why people call them puppy dogs. I get that. That they will come to the glass and he will beg for food. He will see me and he'll want to interact. He'll want to play. He knows it's playtime. And that's just adorable. You don't get that with a snake. Yeah, I'll have snakes who show and make it clear that they want to come out. But it's nothing compared to the interaction from this little guy. One of the things you might not notice about them instantly, in the same way you would with their blue tongue, is that they've got a third eye. So just there, you see that little white dot? That's their third eye. And they use this eye to detect heat changes, movement from above. So they don't just defend, they're a little bit proactive as well. They're a little bit fantastic. But it's not just used for that. It's also used to help them track the patterns of daylight, to see when it's night, when it's day, so they can see light as well as movement. Which is why it's important, and in fact not just important, it is mandatory if you were going to get one of these guys to have a decent UVB that gives around 12% UVB. Because they need that, not just for their night and day cycle, but also to stop them getting anything nasty like metabolic bone disease. So you are going to need to make sure that you've got UVB. But I will go through a shopping list of things that you would need if I persuade you that the Blue Tongue Skink is for you. I'll go through a little shopping list with you later. One thing that I find adorable, and he's kind of doing it now right on cue, is they move their heads. They listen in the same way a dog does. So when I'm talking to a dog, I'm saying good boy, good girl, tilting their heads, giving me that little puppy dog thing. That's why people love them. They do that. They're so responsive. They look like they're listening. And they've got ears to listen. So completely differently to snakes, they've got those ears. They've got very visible ear holes. As you can see, right there. So he can actually hear me talking. And that's when he starts to respond. And that's when he starts to move his head. And that's also when he will come to the glass and start running towards me, being like a little puppy. Which is really nice. And it's quite rewarding, to be honest, that it gives you that feeling that they actually really like me. So one of my favourite pet lizards is the bearded dragon. And I love them. I love everything about them. But a blue tongue skink, a little bit more chill, a little bit more relaxed. And very different feeling as well. It's hard to describe. I've heard blue tongue skinks described as a sausage with legs. And kind of not wrong, but they are much smoother. A little bit. It's not quite snake-like, it's not scaly, spiky like a bearded dragon. It's kind of like a leather handbag. That'll never happen to you, I promise. What else can I tell you about blue tongue skinks before we get into some specifics about Vegemite? They're ovoviviparous. That took me a bit of practicing, which means that they have live birth. Not you, Vegemite, don't panic. You want a high five? I think he just wants to hold on. And they've got one of the most famous defensive displays in the reptile kingdom, like I said before. It's not like a cobra. It's not the big hood puffing up. Instead, it's that flash of blue. It's that famous blue tongue. and it's famous because that's where they got their name. A Blue Tongue Skink isn't just friendly and chill and relaxed, and he's probably not going to do it now because he is pretty relaxed with me and he is pretty settled, but they will be a bit like a grumpy old man, and they will huff and puff and hiss and look really angry, but yeah, they don't mean it. They're all bluff, they're all talk, and most of that talk is nonsense. So with this guy, sometimes if I've just woke him up and I just want to change his water, I'll get a little and they make it quite clear. But so does my other half, to be honest. Now, I mentioned before about not trusting them with snails, and that's because snails to them are amazing. They've got jaws that are designed to crunch through those snail shells, and they love them. So Vegemite will clear his bowl if it's snail day. And when I say snail day, Vegemite's a baby. They were only born in November 2025, so they're only currently about 4 months old. I'm giving them a lot of bugs and a lot of insects, including snails, but a lot of bio roaches, crickets, locusts, and they're munching their way through all of that. But if I give them snails, it's almost like their tail's going to wag, even with his sort of regenerated stumpy tail. But at the moment, he's having about 50% of his diet is insects and bugs. He also loves a product called Omnigold, which is a pre-prepared meal for, I think they make it for a few lizards, but for Blue Tongue Skinks, containing lots of their favourite foods and stuff that we would never want to eat. But he will munch his way through that, and he will enjoy it all. He also likes his greens. He's quite good. He's a good boy. He's quite healthy. He will happily munch his way through some collard greens, through some rocket. I don't give him anything that's too water-based, like iceberg lettuce or anything, because it's a little bit pointless and there's no nutrients. I will supplement the food with a little bit of multivitamin, just sprinkled on across their insects or across the greens. And if he's ever shedding or looks particularly dehydrated, then I will also water and spray their greens as well, so just to give them that extra bit of hydration. So what's life like with a Blue Tongue Skink? Well, every morning with Vegemite I will get up, and one of the first things I will do is check their water bowl, because this guy is a mess. He loves to traipse through his substrate and then traipse straight into his water bowl. When he decides he wants a drink, he doesn't just gently tip his head over the edge. No, of course not. Why would he make it easy for me? He likes to dive in, climb in, half climb in, submerge himself, and traipse every bit of substrate through the tank. So I'll give his water bowl a clean every morning. I'll also do a spot check for those random poops, those little presents, those little surprises that he's left for me, and just make sure that I've cleaned all of them out. And then I'll let him get warmed up. So his hotspot's set to about 35 degrees Celsius, and he's got UV, so full spectrum UV, about 12% going across 3/4 of his tank, and give him what he would be getting in nature with the sun. So I make sure that he's got everything, and it's on a 12-hour cycle, so it's on during the day and off during the night, but he usually gets his head down anyway at night. So, and then it's feeding time, and then I will give him everything that we discussed and make sure that he's got his food. At the moment, I feed him 4 or 5 times a week, pretty much every day with the greens, and I give him his protein 4 or 5 times a week. When he's a little bit older, I'm going to drop that down, so he only gets his insects and bugs 3 days a week. I'm probably going to be in a lot of trouble when that happens, but yeah, well, got to keep him healthy. When you decide, do you know what, Vegemite's beautiful, I'd love my own Blue Tongue Skink, what you're going to need? You're going to need a minimum tank of 4x2x2. A minimum. The more space you can give them, the better. They're not going to thrive in anything smaller. You're going to need that UV that I talked about, so a decent brand. You're going to need to be checking manufacturer specifications on the UV to see how often it needs to be replaced, because UV does have a shelf life, so those bulbs will run out and they will stop giving him the nutrients that he needs. You're going to need a very heavy water bowl, because these guys like to burrow. So for substrate, I use some cypress mulch and some cocoa chips on the top. But a lot of people use bioactive. I can't. I would love to. I can keep an animal alive and give them a very long, happy, healthy, thriving life. You give me a plant and I will have killed it within a day. I don't mean to. I just can't look after plants. So a lot of people use topsoil, which is another fantastic alternative, but these guys aren't the same as the Indonesian Blue Tongue Skinks, so you're not going to want to give them too high a humidity. So I try and keep Vegemite's humidity to about 60%. And make sure that the surface is a mixture of dry and moist. So I will give him a little spray, I will give the tank a spray if it's ever getting to the point where it's a little bit dry, but generally I'll keep the humidity stable. So unlike an Indonesian blue tongue skink, which requires pretty regular high humidity. Another difference with the Northern Blue Tongue Skink with Vegemite and an Indonesian is the Indonesians tend to have the black legs. So they've all got the same stumpy little legs, but the Indonesians have black legs, whereas Vegemites and the Northerns tend to match the coloration of the rest of their body. You're going to need a couple of hides, so very similar to pretty much every single animal that we're going to discuss on this channel. You're going to need a couple of hides. You're going to need one at the cool end, one at the warm end, and you're going to want something flat, something that they can climb into and they will be able to feel against their back, just to feel that security. Unlike some of my large snakes, which I have to use homemade hides for, or a tortoise hide when they get to a certain size. For a blue tongue skink, they're going to want something that's big enough to fit them, but tight enough to feel on their back. And you heard me mention a hot end of the tank, and you've heard me mention 35 Celsius, so you're going to need something to provide heat. You're going to need something like a ceramic heat emitter, a heat bulb, or you're going to need a radiant heat panel, something that can provide them that intense heat that they're going to require. And apart from that, go wild. So decorate it, make it look really good, put some nice plants in there, things for them to climb. They're not arboreal, they are a terrestrial species. I don't have anything that's too high or that would risk injury to Vegemite. He's quite clumsy. He's a very good climber. He loves climbing his branch and he loves climbing the glass. He loves showing me his belly. I haven't actually shown you his belly. There's Vegemite's belly. But a lot of plastic plants or real plants if you want to go down the bioactive route, which I salute you. Then go for it and give them that enrichment, give them everything they need, and you can't go far wrong. So for me, a blue tongue skink is the gold standard lizard. There's a lot of other lizards I love, and if I had the space, there's a lot of other lizards I would get. But for me, I'm very happy with a blue tongue skink. I'm very happy with Vegemite. There is one other essential piece of equipment, and this is non-negotiable in the same way as the UV, and that is a thermostat. So I use a very good high quality, high wattage bulb, and that provides him all the heat that he needs, but you must be careful to use a thermostat. And this applies to every animal in my reptile room. You're not going to want to boil them alive. So you need a thermostat, which needs to be plugged in with a sensor at the hot end of the tank, and the heat source plugged in to the thermostat, which obviously then plugs into the mains, and that will control your temperature and make sure that they are exactly where they need to be. So I use quite nice ones, and I can control it so it's always within 1 degree either side, whether slightly cooler, slightly hotter. But he will have a cool down of a night, so I drop it down to about 19-20 degrees of night just to replicate what he would have in nature. And as you can see, Vegemite is thriving. I just wanted to give you an introduction and see if I could persuade you that blue tongue skink is the perfect pet. That reptile look, that reptile feel, that reptile personality, the reptile care, with the personality of a tiny little leather dog. So that's it from me and Vegemite. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care. See you soon.
Come on, Vegemite. Come on, boy. Come on. No, you're going to go the other way, aren't you, mate? Come on. Vegemite. No, you're going the other way. Bad dog.
Hello. If you want to see more of these snakes and the rest of the snakes in the reptile room, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and I'll see you soon.